Right.
Off
So,
we go.
we're having to do things a bit differently this week because of other tasks and chores that we need to run.
Children.
Yes, children involved, exactly. So we are recording in the car instead, and we are, hopefully there's enough light because it is getting dark outside. Storm Amy
It's on the way or here. It's raining
this
anyway.
is it coming, I think. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, we thought we'd do our bit as we're traveling, and I'd completely forgot to tell you all the notes are in there, of course, because we've just spent 15 minutes trying to set up the cameras in the car. So we had planned to talk a bit about
James Tallarico,
the Texas representative who is
like state representative who's
who's
running for Senate.
Yeah, and who is also going to seminary.
Yes, he's also a pastor.
Yeah, training to be a pastor. And however, because we're traveling, so we had looked out some clips to use, but we'll have a look at those next week because it was going to get all too complicated trying to do that while we're traveling, if that makes sense.
I think it does.
So we could do a little bit of an update on things that have happened this week. Sort of sad stuff is that, well, you know, on Sunday in the service at our church, I mentioned the shooting that had taken place in Minneapolis, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Back at the end of August, and just talking about some of the responses to that there. And then in the afternoon, we heard there'd been I think I made some comment, didn't I, in the service about, like, I know it's hard to remember these because there are so many shootings that you hear about in the United States. And then that afternoon, there was another one in Michigan, wasn't it? Yeah, in a Mormon church where a guy drove into the church and then started shooting, and I think another two people have died.
Said two more deaths,
and then a whole bunch of people injured, and then the whole church burned down.
Fire,
yeah. And the guy who did it there was shot by the police, right? I think.
Yeah, that's often what happens, isn't it?
Yeah, so you never really find out exactly the reasons why, because the perpetrator gets shot
or they kill themselves sometimes. I mean, that happens a fair amount also, so it's hard to... I think the root cause is just there are guns, lots and lots of guns, and if we didn't have such easy access to guns and there was more control on who can access guns, like there is in other parts of the world, you just wouldn't be having all of these.
Well, so the sort of the irony of that, or the difficult part of that is, we in the UK this week have had an attack on a synagogue, and two people died, right? And then the perpetrator,
I'm not sure. I haven't really.
I think that's what it is. But I believe he had a knife, because this is the UK and guns are more tightly controlled. But I think one of the victims was accidentally shot by the police.
By the police.
So there you go, guns. So that's really tragic.
And it is probably worth saying that most police here are not armed. So it would have just been specialized armed units that would have gone to this incident because of the violence there.
Yeah.
So generally speaking, police are not carrying guns here.
You're kind of police on patrol and things like that are generally not, but there are always
specialized units
that can react when so that's what had happened in this case. And I think there was a note by the police had put out a note saying it looks like, and I think one of the other so not somebody who's died, but somebody who's in hospital is injured. It looks like it was a gunshot wound as well.
Gosh.
And of course the guy who committed the act, he wasn't armed with a firearm.
Right. You just
it is likely it was
police
collateral damage by the police. So that's really really sad. But so these incidents of violence in places of worship
seem to be escalating.
I looked at a chart in the States that kind of goes from 2000 through to 2024, I think it was, and you do see a steady increase within places of worship. So I think around about 400 deaths over that period within places of worship in the United States. So really, sad, and just that sign of violence that's taking place, and there's no, sometimes feels like there's no place that is safe, right? A place of sanctuary.
Well, and I think it just goes, doesn't it? I mean, there just seems to be a ramping up of the violent rhetoric, our politicians are, I mean, the whole, I think we were the whole, all of the army generals in the States being called to the meeting in Virginia, Quantico, by Hegseth and Donald Trump. And then there's all of this rhetoric about the enemy within and the American military being deployed against American civilians, and because the American civilians are enemies because they disagree with Donald Trump. I mean, and this has been a feature of Donald Trump ever since the very beginning. I mean, he introduced his whole campaign by saying that Mexicans coming into the country were rapists and murderers and, all of this kind of stuff. But it just is getting worse and worse and worse. And I think, the population is listening to that and being radicalized by that.
And I suppose not. I mean, that radicalization it can happen like across the board because everything just gets more divided, right? So at the extreme edges of things, it leads to more problems, right?
Yes, but we don't just have political disagreements anymore, do we? It's the people who disagree with you are your enemies, and it's really easy to fall into that, right? When you see people, I mean, from our perspective, you see what's happening in the States, and you see the authoritarianism and the demonizing, and it's not just demonizing immigrants. I mean, like there was just a raid at an apartment building in the middle of the night in
Chicago?
It was in Chicago, where they were pulling people, children, and everyone out of their beds, zip tying their hands together. Some of them had hardly any clothes on in the middle of the night. Terror. I mean, and then when you see people that who support that politically, it becomes hard to see, right? You feel like if you think that's okay, what do we have in common?
Yeah.
It becomes really difficult. I don't know what the solution is.
Yeah.
But then I think so, and the rhetoric on the other side is that those of us who oppose this administration are violent and right, and which I don't think is borne out by our actions. I mean, both sides in this feels not the right thing to do, because I think we're actually seeing state violence against innocent people. Whereas on the other side, it's just rhetoric saying everyone who disagrees with Trump is violent and is evil and is an enemy of the state. And right, they're trying to
I wasn't trying to both sides.
Yeah, no, I think I am. I mean, I was kind of, because acknowledging that when I see the raid in Chicago against innocent people, many of whom were American citizens, right? Not even supposedly an immigration raid, but lots of American citizens were caught up in that. Not that it's okay to do it to people who aren't American citizens. And I do feel like it's hard to find common ground with people who think that that's okay. Mm-hmm. So I recognize that in myself.
Right.
But I find it hard to think, I don't.
Yeah, no, I know.
So the more things get bad, then it's almost like the more that pushes the polarization. So how do you break the cycle? I'm not sure how you...
Well, I was very worried about this event when we heard that it was taking place
in generals in
Quantico. All these military high hegions coming, and I mean, there's been a few folks talking about how incredibly reckless and irresponsible it is to broadcast the fact that you're gathering all of the top brass of the most powerful military in one room.
I know.
Literally in one room.
I know.
I mean,
crazy.
it's just on a security, like if you were wanting to cut the head off the snake.
Yeah,
I mean, I mean, it seems crazy to do, and the expense of having to trek, because these people would have been all over the world, having to get them all there at short notice for a couple of pep rallies. So I think there've been two other relatively recent events where Donald Trump has been speaking to military, and one was to, I think it was a young group of recruits.
Yes.
And at that one there was a lot of cheering and whooping and cheering.
Yeah.
But then there was one of graduates at West Point, which of course you have a connection to, that being the kind of officer academy for the Army. How many generations have gone through West Point?
My dad was the 7th generation.
And then there was another in the 8th generation, wasn't there?
Yes, although that wasn't a straight line, because neither of it was one of my cousins, but neither of his parents had gone to West Point.
Right, I see. However,
but yes, he would have been.
Speaking just of folks in the family. Yeah. There's
West
a
Point,
lot of folks that have gone to West Point.
Yeah.
So at that one, he was speaking, I think, to the graduating group, and it was stoical silence, I think, and that is what we basically saw
from the generals.
And Trump even himself came out saying, "Wow, this is the most silent crowd," and then said, "You can cheer if you want to."
Yeah, and there were definitely applause lines where they wanted applause and clapping.
At the end of Hegseth's speech, it was clear that was supposed to be an applause line, because he kind of looks nervous or looks down when nothing happens, and it was. Yeah, it's weird.
It would have been really inappropriate for any of them. I mean, that's just not what the military does. You don't.
They are supposed to be apolitical. Yeah. They respond to whoever is the president. They are the commander in chief. Yeah. But of course, that was what they were clearly trying to get, is the optics of the military cheering
on side,
being on side. So that was a relief. That
except for the fact that how long are those generals going to last? Because I think they did say, if you're not on board with attacking American citizens, get out.
Well, yes. So Hegseth said that if you are uncomfortable with what I'm saying, you should do the decent thing and resign. When Trump was speaking, he said, if you don't agree, you're free to do whatever you like. You can laugh, you can applause, and if you want to get up and leave, you can do so. But of course, you'll be giving up your rank and your blah blah blah.
Oh, yeah.
So there was a threat there about
threats.
Your future.
Everything with these guys are threats. Get in line or else.
Yeah.
I mean, and they're basically saying that to society as a whole. I mean, that, and the businesses and universities and law firms are kind of, at the moment, a lot of them are getting in line. So the other, so some of the things, falls as well.
Some of the things they were saying was about the kind of standards within the military. So there was Hegseth was talking about a return to what the military would have been like maybe 50 years or 60 years ago, something like that, where bullying and hazing of new recruits was endemic. So it was an abusive situation.
And he wants to go back to that?
That is, so this is where he would say, we don't want to go back to the bullying, but we do want to kind of unleash you from all of the
PC stuff.
That kind of treating people like a human being.
Oh my goodness.
But of course, as soon as you open that door, then you're into the grey area of what is bullying, what isn't. And it just becomes a mess, and those who have a tendency to want to abuse people will get away with doing it, right?
And you're going to attract more. I mean, I think this is the problem with ICE. With ICE, you have attracted the worst people in society who want to have power over people, who want to, and so you see the physical abuses. You see these men.
And women.
But masked and then just shoving people to the ground and attacking people because that's the kind of people you're attracting. And so if that's the kind of climate you're creating in the military, and you can see why they want to do it, because they want people who are on board with attacking their fellow citizens. So that's what you do, isn't it? So you create an environment that attracts people who are more violent and who are quite happy to attack.
So I can kind of I can't understand it, but with ICE, that is the immigration and whatever it is.
I'm not sure what it stands for.
But it is law enforcement, right? So as is Border Control, as is Coast Guard and things like that, they're all about law enforcement. So they don't actually operate under the same rules that the military does.
No.
So the military, there are actually rules that the military is not allowed to act upon its own people. But so partly I don't quite understand why they're wanting to go this distance, because they've already created this, what is a quasi-military force in ICE and Border Control, that are completely at the whim of the president. They don't have the same checks that the military does.
Yeah, but I mean the really dark place to go is that they don't really intend to ever leave power, and they don't intend to have elections or have free and fair elections, and they need to pack the military with people who are going to go along with that.
Maybe. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, but
that is that's for sure partly of this, and like some of the rules that they're making about Hegseth went on and on about women, and that women have to be able to do exactly the same thing that a man can do. Well, of course, I mean, that isn't Well, it was, he was probably a bit more subtle than that, but they would have to match like an elevated level of fitness rather than just the basic level of fitness, because he was wanting to, up the game, if you like. And then there's this rule about shaving. Now that affects, is it about a third? I think it's about a third of African American men have a skin condition where, you'll have seen folks that have their skin is really kind of, it's
rough. The texture is.
It's all sort of it's not pimples, but it's a lot. So they would find it really hard to shave. It would be extremely painful to do.
Well, that
if that becomes a new rule, you're basically telling a huge. This is really going to have a detrimental effect to those who would be going into the military or who are in the military at the moment, of putting them. So women, people of color, it felt like he was targeting as, why don't you just go away from our nice white male military that I want to be. That's what it felt like.
I suspect that is that's the well, I know that's the goal. They don't. Hegseth has been pretty upfront that he doesn't want women in the military.
Oh yeah.
There are plenty other things he doesn't want women doing as well, which we can go into later. But yes, we're not. These people are not looking for an egalitarian society. They want the hierarchy that we had less than 100 years ago, right? They want all of that back, where white men are at the top and in control of everything, and everyone else has to.
As a sort of civilian looking on, that is what it felt like. That was kind of part of the. Now there were other aspects to what Hegseth was saying about kind of preparedness and things like that, which, fair enough. But the US military has by far the biggest budget of any military in history.
To
think it isn't prepared is bonkers, absolutely bonkers. Yeah, you can always be more prepared, of course, but in comparison to others, relatively speaking, unbelievable levels of preparedness. So
cheery.
Very cheery. The imagery was, I thought, hysterical in that they had made sure that the backdrop was this massive American flag, Stars and Stripes flag, so that when Trump and Hegseth were speaking, it created the same imagery as the beginning of the film of Patton's life, General Patton.
Oh, right, I've not.
Have you ever seen it?
No, I haven't seen that.
The opening scene is super famous because the whole stage, this is how the film opens. It opens on this massive flag taking up the whole backdrop of the stage. And then Patton, who's played by George C. Scott, kind of steps up from the back of the stage. You see his head kind of growing onto the stage, and then he gives a speech, which is his speech before going into the Battle of the Bulge and all that kind of stuff, to the troops. You never see the troops. The camera is only on him, with the red and white stripes and the stars, and the 48 stars, of course, back then, on the flag. George C. Scott got an Oscar for his performance there, and he turned it down.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh.
super rare for the best for the leading actor for that film.
But
why? He turned it down. He didn't
reasoning?
approve of either the way the voting worked, or just the whole principle of having a competition of about acting. Yeah, interesting indeed. So. Hang on a minute, let me just get past this guy. There we go. The other, so there was all of that.
They're not exactly General Pattons, are they?
Well, I actually went back to watch that speech from the film, and it's not child friendly for a start. the speech, but the contrast to like Donald Trump is hysterical, you know. But of course, there you go. That was a military leader who was then going to go and take his troops into battle, right, against the fascists.
Yeah.
There's a lot that's different in the current time.
Yeah.
So then, did you see any of the bits of Trump's actual? I think he blethered on for 70 odd minutes or something. It went on and on.
I can't really listen to him for too long. It
was mad. He had this whole riff for like 2, 3, 4 minutes about stairs. It was just about the use of stairs.
And he liked the fact that Obama, he didn't like Obama, but Obama could go up and down stairs.
Oh yeah, no, but he did, well,
really?
He didn't, he mocked Obama for his doop down the stairs without holding on to the handrail and all of that kind of thing.
But then he was careful.
Well, then he was like, oh, I guess I could do it, but then things might go wrong. Yeah. And then what was so weird about, well, it wasn't weird, but he gave like a whole reasoning for why he walks slowly up and down stairs that obviously was what he had been told as to why he needs to be careful in the stairs. Right. So it sounded like what his doctor or advisors had been telling him. There's no rush. It's not a competition. You're not supposed to be getting... I mean, he was saying all this stuff out loud. You know, it's embarrassing. It's so embarrassing. Yeah, it was disjointed because, of course, he was off on his tangents here, there, and everywhere. And then, as we were talking about earlier, the military treats each commander-in-chief
the
same, because that is the person who has been voted as the civilian leadership of that country to make the decisions that they have to carry through. And he went off talking about Biden and Obama, about how awful they were. I think 11 times he talks about Biden. It's so off, you know, just for how you're supposed to behave as a president.
Behaved how you're supposed to behave.
So that was a bit mad, all of that. I was at a meeting this week for the first time, going along to what is called the Joint Public Issues Team. Mm-hmm. Now, this is a body that is a interdenominational body across different churches. Yep. So Baptist Church in England, URC, United Reformed Church, and the Methodist Church. And the Church of Scotland is a kind of associate partner within it. So I went along as the Church of Scotland's representative for this next year. As part of what we were doing at this meeting, it was looking ahead towards the kind of work program for the year ahead to approve that. Mm-hmm. So the group I'm on is called it's the group that kind of has the program kind of oversight, strategy and policy kind of group, and as a part of that, we're approving the work plan for the year ahead, and that included looking at what the values were for the organization. Yeah. And when I was looking at the values for the organization, I thought these are
really good,
really positive and really good. But I can imagine they might not. You're just wondering what other folks would think about it. So I just thought, because we're not looking at the Tallarico videos. We can maybe just have a look at these 6 values.
Okay.
Kind of see what we think about them. I do not have them in front of me. You have them in front of you.
I have them in front of me.
In the edit, we can put them up on screen so folks can see them on screen. But yeah, fire away. What's the first one?
The first one is a society where the poorest and most marginalized are at the center.
Right.
Which is kind of like that, and you hear it from different people saying, right, like the measure of our society shouldn't be how the stock market is doing and how the wealthiest in society are doing, but how the poorest in society are doing, and that's how we should measure our society.
So we get caught in traps talking about like GDP or the kind of average earnings.
Yes.
But it really should be median earnings or something like that we're looking at, because having a small group of people earning squillions of pounds messes with the average completely. So it's the same with GDP. Companies can be doing really well, and so a lot of money is being created in the financial sector or in extractive industry sectors, oil and gas or whatever it might be. And that money is either going to shareholders or owners of the company. It's not a representation of where everyone is in a society.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like Jesus would be on board with that. I don't feel like that is where the Republican Party is at the moment, even though they like to claim that they're the real Christians and the rest of us aren't.
We frequently say that there are more than 2,000 references to kind of economic justice and poverty, the poor, within the Bible.
And
it's not just a small little topic. It is a topic that recurs on and over and over. We see it. Yeah. So that's that makes it's that principle of don't talk about us without us. So if you're in discussions about policy or in discussions about a group, but you don't have any representation from that group as a part of the discussion, well, that's just, for justice reasons, that's not okay.
Not a good thing.
So this talking about those who are poor being as part of the center of things, they are part of the discussion. Have a say in what is being said.
Yeah, which just makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the things that, as someone who in teaching, you do kind of sometimes as a class teacher, you just think, oh, these people in the council or whatever, or even management sometimes, who are making decisions but haven't been in the classroom for a long time, right? So I guess it's the same kind of thing, that you want to be talking to the people that you're trying to help.
Yeah.
What would help them?
What would be good for you?
What would work? What wouldn't work?
Exactly. So the poor at the center of policy making. Yeah.
All right, so the next one is a society that welcomes the stranger, which would be great.
Would be nice.
Yeah, I mean, that, of course, and the stranger is such an easy target, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of people who want to distract from where the real problems are being caused, blame someone that no one knows. So, right. So, and that you see that happening all across the Western world at the moment, even though.
And again,
immigration is such a net contributor to societies. Anytime you look at any of the data, immigration is a net positive.
Is a positive, yeah. I mean,
Speaking
culturally,
as an immigrant,
financially, it is. Yeah, all of the doomsaying about how immigrants cost money is, well, of course there can be costs, but that is by far taken over by
the contributions.
Yeah, by the contributions that come, and that's what makes me really annoyed about those who get so upset by folks that that are being kind of held before they've gone through the processing of being a refugee. They are not allowed to work.
Yeah.
You know, it's not.
And so that whole thing
on
hardly any money at all.
Very little.
Yeah.
And
it's
so
not a
when
existence.
When folks get so upset about that, you're like, yeah, no, that's you've completely got this messed up and wrong. And then those who are able to work are, of course, then contributing to society.
Well, and I just was watching a Panorama, which is a news program over here in the UK, did do a piece just this past week on the asylum hotels. And that was one of the points that they were speaking to someone who was being housed in one of these hotels, and they were saying, we're not allowed to work. I would really prefer to be working. I want to be contributing. I want to be earning my own money, but I'm not allowed to. I've got a wee video actually that came out of the. It was just in the notes I was reading for this the Joint Public Issues Team meeting. A video was produced in partnership with them and the Methodist Church, which is all about a welcome and hospitality to others. So maybe you can play that at the end of this our discussion. It's a very positive video. The third one is a planet where the environment is renewed, which seems like a no-brainer since we're currently running through our resources.
You'd think, wouldn't you?
What are we doing for future generations, for ourselves in the future? It just seems crazy that we're not concerned about what we're doing to our planet.
And there's a big shift that is going to need to happen away from this is what I was talking about just a minute ago about extractive, between an extractive world and a renewable world. And so extractive in its kind of basis is that your wealth comes from extracting stuff from the environment and using it up in order to create wealth. So oil and gas is an obvious example, but there are more examples. In agriculture, you can have extractive forms of agriculture or renewable forms of agriculture. It's about how you go about these things.
You do realize what we need to move away from in agriculture?
Yes, but that's going to be for another discussion, which we will have you at some other time.
Yes, we do.
Yes, I do.
I am to move away from animal agriculture. I
am fully aware of that. I'm fully aware of that.
Okay, I'll just put in that plug.
No, I know.
Okay. Number 4 is a just economy that enables the flourishing of all life, so that we're, and the thing is, it is funny. You do this kind of people on the right seem to want to hark back to this, 60, 70 years ago. We want to go back. It was more idyllic back then. And what they mean by that is white men were in charge of everything. But actually, economically, things were much more, like in the States, the highest, the top tax rate was like 90%. And the differential between CEO pay and the pay of workers, they only made about 200 times more, whereas now it's thousands and thousands of times more. So there was a much more equitable distribution of resources, and the actual labor that was producing the goods and driving the economy was paid reasonably for that. And we just moved away from that, where more and more money is going to the top very, very few people. It's not even 1%, really. It's the top tiny group of people who are not producing and not driving the economy, but they have their control of everything, and they control our politicians, don't they? So they can, speaking of extracting, they're kind of extracting our labor and really not paying properly for it. Anyway.
What I like about that statement is it's not just about humanity, right?
Yeah.
It's about the whole of creation. Yeah. It's a whole planet thing. So it's also speaking about the rest of the
that
world.
Goes back, doesn't it, to our agriculture thing?
It does, and biodiversity is when we're seeing like a collapse in biodiversity at the moment, and we're not quite sure of the ripple effects of that, what that means.
Although we can guess that they're going to be pretty bad.
You would assume so, because everything's connected together. Yeah. So when you see this, the breadth of the variety of life starting to diminish, then that is inevitably, and you would assume that's going to have like effects as far as illness and disease propagation and things going on like that. So I'll be. I don't know. I find it hard to. How would you say no to these? But folks will.
It would be, and it would be really interesting actually to have a conversation about these with people like my parents.
Yeah.
I would be quite interested, or other people who voted for Trump. I would be quite.
What do you think about these?
What do you think about these, and what does that mean to you? Because I wonder sometimes, we use similar words. It's like the Jonathan Haidt, where fairness. We talked about the moral foundations, and fairness is a moral foundation for everyone. But when people on the right and people on the left talk about fairness, they mean different things. So I wonder if they would agree with some of this, but they would mean different things by it. Possibly. Maybe. It would be an interesting conversation to have.
Yeah, or only within those subgroups that you look out for this. I don't know. Yeah, it would be really interesting to,
Number 5 is a world which actively works for peace, which seems...
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's so much war and violence and incitement to violence. Right, so and you just think, gosh, wouldn't it be nice?
We're surrounded by conflict yet again around the world.
Yeah.
So
and conflict within our own countries, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's when we went to the counter protests outside the refugee hotel. I mean, that wasn't violent, thankfully, but it was definitely wasn't necessarily very. It just, I guess it was peaceful, but it was definitely unkind things being said on both sides, and just not very nice.
Yeah, I know. So that's and you saw in some of what happened last. Wasn't it last week that Netanyahu he was speaking at the United Nations kind of after Trump had his address at the United Nations. And the United Nations, you think about the UN peacekeeping troops, all that sort of thing, used to be flawed as it is, but was a source of trying to work towards peace in situations of conflict. And troops would go in to try and hold the peace, not through military means, but just by being present there. But that seems to be
not.
That the UN is because of this move away from multilateralism and more to these kind of spheres of influence. The UN is losing its ability to speak kind of on behalf of the world, of representatives of the whole world, and that is that feels like a retrograde step.
Well,
mind you, Donald Trump has apparently cured every war on the planet and deserves 18 Nobel Peace Prizes. So who are we to say?
Oh, gosh. And the last one. There we go. A politics characterized by listening, kindness, and truthfulness.
So I read that and I was like, oh, well, there you go. That's right up our street.
Listening, kindness, and truthfulness. Yes, well, we're wanting to speak out for kindness. We're certainly wanting to be truthful. The listening is interesting, isn't it? You think, so is there a way to, I think most people that we know here would think similarly.
Would agree
with us.
Yeah.
So in what ways are we listening to people who disagree with us? And I don't know.
You try and do. I was like this earlier today. I was listening to in the car a guy who was military and was much more sympathetic to what Hegseth was saying at in front of the troops, which I found. So there were certain things that he did not like, the issues about bullying and releasing the rules on bullying and hazing and that kind of thing, and on the impact for the African American community of the shaving and stuff like that. I thought was all silly stuff, but on some of the other issues he had more sympathy. Yeah, it is important to try and listen to folks, isn't it, from giving you a different perspective.
Although again, I think there are dangers to that. It's like, just for example, I know someone in my family who is much more liberal, certainly is not a Trump voter, but regularly listens to Fox News. And I know that he says he does this so that he knows what the other side is saying, but it definitely affects him. And you can see how he buys into some of those narratives, even though he thinks he's standing outside of those narratives and critiquing them. He's not, like, to some extent he does, but so when you listen to lies all the time and you listen to propaganda all it works. Inevitably affects you, because it's
they don't do it for nothing.
So it's tricky, isn't it? So how do you listen without being affected by lies? It's hard.
The reason Russia spends so much money and energy in trying to push propaganda and lies in other countries around the world is because it works. It does start to nudge people's understandings if they keep seeing or hearing the same lie over and over and over again. And it does affect them.
And I think even if they don't believe the lie, because that's the other thing with Russia, they don't really care which lie you believe. They just want you to throw up your hands and say, how do I know what's the truth?
Indeed,
So my relative doesn't have to believe the Fox News lies, but if he's thinking, well, maybe they've got a point, and so maybe they don't have a point, I don't really know what's true, and I'm pretty comfortable myself, so let's just wash my hands of all of them. That's good enough for the authoritarians, right? They just need people to check out.
And it can be more subtle. I mean, this is the kind of when you get the false equivalency taking place. So over climate change is like the obvious example where for many years on the BBC, you would have they would have two people that would come on to onto Newsnight or whatever it was, a news show. You'd have somebody who is a scientist talking about the perils of climate change, what the effect it might have, and then another scientist who would dismiss climate change and say it was all a scam. So anyone watching that, they would see a balance, but it would look like it was an 50-50. Even balance. Whereas if you look behind the scenes, you would see there were 98 other scientists behind that one who was saying, we should be concerned about climate change, and no one else behind the other one. And so it's
not actually balanced, is it?
It isn't balanced, but they're trying to give a balance, and yet it
skews the reality.
In doing that, they actually skew reality.
Yeah, well, I mean, I like these 6 hopes for society, and I think if we were all working, if you could get everyone working towards this, then gosh, it would feel much more hopeful. The world would feel much more hopeful.
So, I mean, a lot of what we've been talking about is kind of, in some ways, talking about the situation that we're seeing week in, week out, and some of the things that are alarming us about this. Well, this organization is actively working on issues of peace and justice to try and make a difference. So they are they work in parliaments, trying to lobby and putting out papers about issues and topics to try and help people to think about the issues and then think about the choices that you make about those things. So there's the practical side to what is coming, but it's founded in these values, which like you, I thought were profoundly helpful. I mean, it's not a surprise, right? It's but it was good to see. Courage to see those.
And the practical side is really good. I mean, we need to not just be talking about this. We need to be finding ways to, even in small ways, try to take action in our own little corners of the world.
Whichever little thing we can do. Yeah, absolutely. No, indeed.
Alrighty.
Yeah. So, something positive though coming out of what we're seeing around us at the moment, which is quite varied and mixed, and everything's happening around the world.
Yeah.
What was it you wanted to talk about today?
Oh, well, I was just going to talk a little bit, and we've touched on this before, about the patriarchy, but the threat to women's rights in the States.
Okay, so what is there anything in particular that's triggered this week?
Well, I've been trying not to be a little keyboard warrior, but recently I've really taken a step back and just have ignored things that have been, just because it was a little bit overwhelming for where I was myself. But this past week I did dip into a conversation, people that I went to high school with, in Alaska, and there was some conversation around what's currently happening in the States. And it kind of veered off. One of the guys was saying that us middle-aged white women needed to get our act together because Muslims were coming for women's rights in the States, and he was the one fighting for women's rights in the States, and Trump and those guys were, and then Muslim, because we thought Muslims weren't coming for our rights,
which begs the question: how is Trump defending women's rights?
Oh my goodness! Well, and of course he's not.
Did he say anything about that?
No, there were never any specifics. It's all just kind of rhetoric, right? But of course, women's rights are really severely under attack in the States, and it's not just Roe v. Wade, which it being overturned took away women's rights to control their own bodies medically. You really have people speaking of Hegseth, people at the highest echelons of government who are openly, for example, retweeting a documentary about Doug Wilson. So Hegseth positively retweeted a clip from a documentary recently aired about Doug Wilson, and I think the Hegseth's quote was "all of life for all of Christ for all of life," and this clip from this documentary. Now, Doug Wilson, he has been around for years. He is a pastor in Idaho, and they are Reconstructionists. They are I grew up conservative. They are conservative evangelical. They are even more extreme. Hegseth goes to a Doug Wilson-inspired church, and in this documentary that Hegseth positively retweeted, there were people from this church saying, yep, women should not be allowed to vote. All right? I mean, this is...
So that's pretty extreme stuff.
But this is no longer extreme in the States. This is being pulled into the mainstream. And there are numerous people on the right, that are openly saying nope, it should be a family vote. And saying now because women have the vote, society is fractured, it should only be families that have the right to vote. Well, it's not going to be families, it's going to be the men. And they're wanting to get right. And so women having control and having options, right? They don't like that because the women don't have to stay in abusive situations because they can get out, right? So there are more divorces than there were in the 50s. There weren't any divorces in the 50s because women literally had no way out of abusive situations. So I Politics Girl, I was watching one of her, she's a kind of YouTuber and she has a podcast, and look her up, she's great. And she did just recently, Trump has signed an executive order basically saying we need to look at this, and it was a law that was passed in 1974, which essentially said that lenders could not discriminate against people on any basis. They could
so this is what allowed credit cards to go for men and women. And,
this was when you couldn't discriminate. You couldn't refuse a woman a right to a credit card to get to So, and this was we were toddlers then. And prior to that, you could just say women couldn't have. So when you're saying that, so an executive order isn't the same as a law, and it doesn't replace the law. But if Trump's Justice Department is not going to enforce that law, then, well, that's women's protections to be able to be independent financially. Right? People can start taking that away. And if you can't be independent financially, then you do become trapped. You become trapped if you are in because you then become dependent on the man in your life.
So this is exactly going back to when we talked initially thinking about how many references there are to poverty in the Bible. Right up there are the instructions about widows. So like widows and slightly to a lesser extent, but orphans are right there. Almost become kind of totemic figures for those who may be vulnerable in society. And it's exactly that. It's because they didn't have control over their own resources. So they would have to go and I was just thinking about this because I've just been planning a service for a couple of weeks' time, and it is the parable is the parable of a widow going to the unjust judge and pestering them to look for justice. And it doesn't say in the parable, exactly what the issue was, but you can kind of read between the lines when you know a bit about the culture of the day that it is likely that this would have been to do with trying to get if her husband had died, of getting the estate, the money to get some control over it, because somebody else in the family was not giving what should be due to them, and so there was this fight that's then having to take place over the rights of a widow to something. And that's particularly when you've got levirate marriage, which back in those times where if somebody was widowed, one of the brothers could marry, but it was optional. They don't have to do it. So if none of the brothers would marry the widow, then what does the widow do? And it's in those situations they would have to go to a judge to try and find some kind of recompense. So this is not these issues about how women can become in more patriarchal societies can be extremely vulnerable is long history to it, and a long history of within the Bible and that of trying to find remedies to it.
Well, I mean, the remedy is just to let women be autonomous and have control of their own lives, but that's not what they want to do.
No.
So I found it extremely ironic that this middle-aged white man was telling me that my rights in the States were under threat from Muslims who have no power in the States, who, right? Like, I mean, when the party that he voted for and that he supported is systemically attacking women's independence in a whole variety of spheres, and are working towards putting women back into this vulnerable position where they will be dependent on the man in their life because they won't be able to vote. They won't have control over their own bodies. They won't have control over their own finances, right? They possibly it won't be as easy for them to get a job, right? We want women back in the kitchen. We want women back having babies. I mean, that's the end game in the States. I guess in politics, girl, when she ended her kind of talking about this EO that Trump had just signed, she showed a picture of women in Afghanistan in the 70s who were very modern, and then women in Afghanistan now. There's precedent for women completely losing their rights, and that is the trajectory that today's Republican Party wants to follow. And
you've seen it twice. You've seen it in Afghanistan because, of course, after the Afghanistan war, the invasion of Afghanistan, women did get more rights back.
And
then Donald Trump, of course, did this deal with the Taliban to take over again. And if Biden gets all the blame for it, it was a deal that Trump organized to give back to the Taliban power. And of course, rights for women have just disappeared again.
Yeah. I mean, and I think they're not not only are they completely covered by burqas, they're not even allowed to make sounds when they're out and about. That's what Politics Girl was saying on her. Anyway, so that was my bit. And it's scary. It is very scary.
Yeah.
Okay. How about you?
So, as I say, I was I'd watched a video that's been produced by the Methodist Church and the Joint Public Issues Team, JPIT as they're known, and this is partly the importance. We were talking last week about narratives and creating positive stories about what's going on, and this again comes back to that. What was the sixth of the point? Was about truthfulness.
A politics characterized by listening, kindness, and truthfulness.
Listening, kindness, and truthfulness. So this is a video that tells some of the stories of people who have been immigrants to the country, the UK, and the positive impact and the relationship between churches in communities with what they're doing. And I loved they had the expression which was something along the lines of hospitality being a remedy to hostility. So it's the difference between these two and how they can the interplay between positively and negatively within a society when you've got hostility on one side, hospitality on the other, and how we can try to work towards a more hospitable kind of a world to one another. So I thought we could. I've seen it, so you could have a wee look. I'll listen again.
I was born in Liberia. My parents were farmers. We had a very happy life, and that safety, that freedom, we had a very comfortable life until 1989. There was a civil war. It was becoming very brutal. Unfortunately, my father was killed, and then my mother and all the siblings, everyone just went head to scatter.
Life used to be on a track, so I've been always dreaming to especially cure cancers. I went to prestigious universities in the world. My dream was coming true, and suddenly I was out of the tracks. There was this young activist and singer which represents most of young generation in Ethiopia. Then one day they killed him or assassinated him.
I decided to find my way to another country on my own. For me, I was unaccompanied child at the age of 14. I went to Guinea, which was my first country of asylum, where I was taken care of by the UNHCR and placed in the refugee camp for 12 years. Everything was extremely difficult, and as a child refugee, it was even difficult because I lost the safety and the protection of my family.
We all went to protest. I've been arrested, I've been persecuted. Once that thing happened to me back home, it's like the road is banned, so I couldn't continue. After that, I didn't want to stay in that country, so that's why I fled out.
I've been part of the church for 6 months, and there was a need for a vision statement. And we met together one evening and we prayed, and our vision statement for St. Luke's became that we are a growing and inclusive church that mirrors the love of God as shown by Jesus. And we were tested with it as soon as the asylum seekers arrived in the hotel here in Hoylake. It was 2020, church was closed, pandemic, and there was a knock on the door, and it was members of the council and members of Heart for Refugees charity. Their request, let's open at 6 o'clock tonight, Kate. We will provide the food, you provide the space. There were 60, I think, at that time, single male asylum seekers. I remember that afternoon thinking and petrified, absolutely petrified, because Hoylake is white, middle class, diverse in its opinions, but not in its population and its ethnicity.
We have a natural tendency to be cautious when we approach people who are unfamiliar to us. I understand that. And fear can transform into hostility. And for me, we challenge hostility with hospitality. And you can move from a situation of fear to a real relationship and respect.
So God is a place we go to get peace and get happiness and feel protected. I arrived in the UK in 2004, and I said that the best place to start was to work with people with lived experience of forced migration, and to share our stories together, but also to create an opportunity for people to feel belong and feel safe in the environment that we all find ourselves in our new home. So for the last 20 years, I've done this locally, nationally, and internationally.
That first evening, I remember as the meal was shared, feeling a huge sense of joy, love, but relief. We didn't need to look alike, we didn't need to eat alike, we didn't need to eat the same foods. We came together around a table and we shared a meal together.
The most repeated ethical requirement in Scripture, love the stranger and regard somebody who's from somewhere else as a citizen living amongst you who belongs. It's an ancient concept, but we need it today.
An important lesson for me is welcome isn't about me doing to another. It's about enabling them. The first couple of weeks we fed every night. And then it dawned on us that actually these people wanted to cook for themselves. We often have this view that we need to help another, but actually perhaps we should start to allow people to help us. And by helping us, we continue to grow and show that love of God.
We're all strangers and guests and also hosts to each other. I see that modeled in Jesus Christ. And I think Jesus gave us a way to measure what welcome and inclusion means. You will see me and serve me in those who are the most excluded, those whose voice is the most marginal. Make all your decisions by asking who is hurting the most and how can we ensure that there is inclusion here and healing.
Opening that door that first day was saying yes to God, and we have learned to say yes ever since.
My passion personally now is to get churches on board to become churches of sanctuary. We should be leading the way.
This is the right time that the church should stand up and doing smaller things towards the bigger picture.
Since I came to the UK, I've seen the real Christian values. Every church I went to, They are genuine, so they don't avoid you, they don't discriminate you. It's not because that they have to do it, or it's not because this is their job. They do it from their own heart. This is like a family. I feel like at some point, well, it's a family that God has provided for me. Felt lost, damaged, but here I am, different life, new beginning, and a little hope.
There is a universal language of love that unites us all as one body. We're not an island of strangers. We are God's creation.
Let's build a world in which there is mercy and love and kindness for everyone.
I thought it was well done in telling some stories, giving a perspective on how communities can make a difference for people, and that was really positive.
Yeah. I do quite often think we do a lot of talking about all of these issues. But how do we then
put it into practice?
How do we start putting it into practice? And I think, as a minister, and then I'm a teacher, so through our jobs, we do,
people,
you're working with people, but then, I do. Obviously the whole refugee, immigrant thing is a huge issue. So how do you, I do sometimes feel like getting involved in something like that is it would be a
positive.
Way to do something, not just talk about it.
There were quite so last night I was at the football at Pitodri, and so it happened to be it's a European game, so we were playing a team from Donetsk in Ukraine. But of course, there are quite a lot of Ukrainians in the city who have come as refugees away from what's going on there. So it was actually there was a good turnout of folks on the away side, and even some people that were just near where we were with their Ukrainian flags who were supporting their team, and that was actually really positive and good to see. And I'm sure it made a difference for them seeing a team from home here. As
glad you
part
could take
of that.
something positive
out of our defeat. I know, the millionth defeat in a row.
But at least you scored a couple of goals.
We did score a couple of goals.
So that's a positive. Hasn't been happening.
On that cheery note.
Yeah, I think maybe that's us.
Enough for this week. So we will have some clips from Representative Tallarico next week. Yes, indeed.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks for joining us. Bye, everyone. Bye.